The Star Trek movie franchise is finally coming back to life, but it is coming with a massive cost. And not too long ago, we got the official confirmation that the long-awaited Star Trek 4, the one that was supposed to bring back Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, as well as the rest of the Kelvin crew, is officially dead at Paramount Plus. They have fully pulled the plug on the project, but as one door opens, a massive blast door opens, because we got the news that the brand new Star Trek movie Reboot is in the works from directors of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And well, guys, this isn't just a sequel, it's not a prequel. This is being described as a completely new take that is going to reset everything we know about Star Trek on the big screen. So today we're going to talk about all of that and what a Goldstein and Daly Star Trek movie could look like. Honestly, there's a lot to unpack here, so without further delay, let's just go ahead and dive straight in. So to just go ahead and rip the band-aid off first, as you guys know, Star Trek 4 is officially canceled. For years, literally since Star Trek Beyond came out in 2016, we've been hearing rumors about this movie. It's been in development hell for nearly a decade. We had Quentin Tarantino pitching an R-rated Star Trek. We had Noah Hawley from Fargo writing a script based on it that got tossed. We even had Matt Shakman, the director of WandaVision, signed on to direct it. Now, through all of that, one constant was the cast. Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, Simon Pegg, and John Cho. They all said that they wanted to come back. They were ready. Chris Pine in specific was so excited to make this movie. We even had a release date announced, but according to the report from Deadline that happened not too long ago, Paramount officially decided to move on. And I'll be real with you guys, this one kind of hurt. Like, the casting for the 2009 reboot was a lightning in a bottle casting. Chris Pine was the perfect Captain Kirk. Zachary Quinto's Spock was incredible, and we really never got a proper send-off for them. Beyond was a great movie in my opinion, but it felt like a TV episode stretched out, not really a finale. And to know that we're never going to see a crew on the bridge of the Enterprise again is kind of a tough pill to swallow. It feels like a wasted opportunity almost, especially since they all had great chemistry, but it is what it is. But if the Kelvin crew is officially dead, what is replacing it? Well, that's when we got the news about the reboot that happened. And again, as much as it did suck that we're not going to get Star Trek 4, the fact that we're getting a reboot is really exciting. Even if you're mourning the loss of the Kelvin crew, according to the report from Deadline that happened, Paramount has hired Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly to write, produce, and direct the next Star Trek movie, which that alone is really exciting. Now, if you don't know those names, you definitely know what they've worked on. These are the guys who directed Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which I actually didn't watch for the longest time. I recently watched it like a few days back. I have no idea how I let this movie like go past me. I did not expect it to be as good as it was, which honestly, this is a massive get for Paramount. Dungeons & Dragons was one of the blockbusters of 2023. And what's really interesting is it, starred Chris Pine as well. So it's almost like Goldstein and Daly are going from working with him on Dungeons & Dragons, which I hope they do the second one if they end up doing it. And it's just funny how they canceled Star Trek, Star Trek 4 with Chris Pine, and the people that did Dungeons & Dragons are going to work on Star Trek that also starred Chris Pine. It's just kind of weird how the world works. But Goldstein and Daly have proven that they can handle big IP without making it feel soulless. Honestly, I thought the writing for the Dungeons & Dragons movie was good. Now, the report specifically states that this project is a completely new take on the Star Trek universe. It is not connected to the Chris Pine movies. It's not linked to the, Strange New Worlds or Picard. It is a standalone reboot intended to launch a new era for the franchise. Now, this tells me that Paramount is looking for, a movie that is accessible to general audiences. People who don't know the difference between a Romulan and a Vulcan. It's stuff like that, that appeals to hardcore fans that, the general audience might not understand. And honestly, Goldstein and Daly are probably the perfect choice to do that vibe. Like, they made Dungeons & Dragons make sense to people that have never played the tabletop game. Like, it does make sense that they're the ones to tackle this one. So if this is a completely new take, what does that actually look like? Because a Star Trek reboot is a scary phrase for a lot of, Trekkies that have been following the movies and the shows quite a bit, which begs the, big question, when is this going to be set? If they're disconnecting from the Kelvin timeline and the current TV shows, they have a few real options here, and I want to kind of break down which one makes the most sense for this specific directing duo. Option A is the 25th century that is post-Picard. This is what the hardcore fans want, at least, that's what I want personally. We want to see what happens after the Next Generation era. At least that's what I want. Like, you guys can have your opinions in the comment section. Now, they could do the Academy reboot where, there is a Star Trek Academy show coming, but a movie version could also work. Kind of like a younger coming of age story. I mean, Goldstein and Daly did write the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, which is arguably one of the better high school, superhero movies ever made. And if Paramount is trying to recapture the audience and bring in a new, like, Gen Z audience, A movie about cadets stealing a starship or something like that, and somehow saving the galaxy does feel like really like right up their alley almost. And then there's option C, which is a total hard reboot, which this is a scary option, but I kind of prefer that option, honestly. This means they'll reboot the original characters again, new Captain Kirk, new Spock, new Bones. I know for a lot of people, this is like really scary. They don't really want this to happen because we just had the Chris Pine version, which was a reboot. We have Paul Wesley playing Kirk right now on TV. So in a lot of regards, we don't need a third James T. Kirk running around in 2027. It could be confusing. It might also seem a bit lazy, but where I'm putting my money on the table is I think they're going to do something similar to Dungeons and Dragons. They'll create a brand new crew of misfits with, new characters, ones that aren't like flagship officers. Maybe they'll be smugglers or scientists or some type of crew that is similar to what the team did with D&D. You cast characters that are like really charismatic, and you let them have their own adventure that just so happens to be in the Star Trek universe. That way you don't have to worry about canon, you don't have to worry about timelines, you can just kind of make a fun space adventure. So now we have to address the big elephant in the room, and that is, why is Paramount doing this? Why cancel a movie with Chris Pine, who honestly I think is arguably, more famous now than he was in 2009, to start over with a new, unproven characters? It really comes down to franchise fatigue and entry barriers. I mean, think about it. Star Trek is, terrifying to new fans. If you want to get into Star Trek right now, where do you even start? Do you start watching the 60s show? Do you start watching the 90s show? Do you start with the new Paramount Plus show? There's literally 900 hours of content to get through. The Kelvin movies, or the J.J. Abrams ones, were supposed to solve that. They were the easy entry point, but by the time Star Trek Beyond came out, the timeline had gotten pretty messy, and general audiences just kind of lost interest. And the box office returns prove that. Beyond made money, but it didn't make Marvel money or anything even to that scale. And in the modern Hollywood landscape, especially with these Skydance writing the checks now, you need Marvel money. I'm pretty sure they just said recently that like they're only going to be working on things that are going to be like blockbuster hits. By bringing Goldstein and Daly, the Paramount is really signaling that they want crowd pleasers. They don't want a hard sci-fi drama about the ethics of the Prime Directive. They want an action adventure comedy that happens to have, phasers in it. They want a movie where you could take your mom, your kid, and your grandma to, and everyone have a good time. And you also have to consider the budget as well. The Chris Pine cast got expensive. Zoe Saldana is in Avengers, Guardians, Avatar, literally everything. If there's a big franchise, Zoe Saldana's in it. Chris Pine is a leading man. Carl Urban is carrying the boys. And to get them all back together, you're looking at a pretty penny just in salaries before you even build a set. A reboot with fresh faces, you can cast up and coming actors for just a fraction of the price, and then spend the rest of the money on visuals. And if the movie does hit, you have them locked in for sequels for the next decade. And from a business perspective, it's the smart play to make, even if it does hurt our hearts that the Kelvin crew will never come back. So now the question is when can we actually see this movie? Well, don't hold your breath because it's going to take quite a long time. The report from Deadline mentions that Goldstein and Daly are currently working on a movie called Mayday for Apple and Skydance, which that's an action movie starring Ryan Reynolds. So they have to, finish writing it, directing it, and editing that movie first. So assuming Mayday wraps up production in early to mid 2026, they likely won't start pre-production on Star Trek until late 2026. That means they're writing the script throughout 2026. Casting will likely happen in 2027 sometime, with filming beginning sometime maybe like in the summer or even the fall of 2027. So realistically, we're looking at like a summer 2028 release date at the absolute earliest. Maybe even holiday 2028, which is unfortunate, and that feels like forever away because it really is. Maybe we'll have GTA 6 by the time, this movie comes out, but honestly, I want them to take their time on this one. Let Daly and Goldstein cook on this, because if they do it correctly, then we could have a lot more Star Trek in the future on the big screen, which I think that's exciting. Now, 2026 is going to be the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, which that's a little sad because we probably won't have a movie in theaters for the anniversary. I believe we will have Starfleet Academy and likely Section 31 on streaming. But for the big screen return, we are playing the waiting game. Star Trek is changing, and I plan to be covering every update, every casting rumor, and ship design leak. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe with your noties on, and until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Live long and prosper.